The cars your parents drove were dangerous. They were trying to kill them. We are counting down 10 dangerous design choices hiding in plain sight on vehicles from the 1970s, from restraints that left protection optional to fire-prone fuel systems and interior surfaces that turned survivable impacts into fatal ones. Regulations and engineering eventually buried every one. The countdown begins at number 10 with a seatbelt design that gave passengers a deadly choice. In 10th place, separate lap and shoulder belts gave front seat passengers a risky choice every time they buckled up. Instead of today's single 3-point system, cars from the 1970s often had two pieces, a lap belt across the hips, plus a shoulder strap you could leave unused. The problem was many drivers skipped the shoulder part, leaving their upper bodies unprotected in a crash. According to crash tests by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, people who used only the lap belt faced about a 40% higher risk of serious chest injury compared to those with a modern 3-point belt. Federal rules finally caught up in 1978 when the government required all new cars to have integrated lap and shoulder belts as standard. That change alone cut chest injuries by nearly 38%. For classic car owners, safety experts still recommend retrofitting 3-point belts. The era of optional upper body restraint quietly ended, and with it, a major source of preventable trauma. Number 9. Lap-only rear belts made the back seat far riskier than most families realized. While these belts were supposed to protect, crash records from the 1970s reveal a hidden threat. Rear passengers wearing just a lap belt faced a 28% higher fatality rate in rear-end crashes. The culprit was a phenomenon called submarining, where the belt slid up over the abdomen during a sudden stop, concentrating force on vital organs like the spleen and liver. Trauma surgeons saw a 3-fold increase in these internal injuries compared to 3-point restraints. Despite a 1974 rule requiring lap belts in the rear, compliance hovered at just 55%. And it was not until Anton's Law in the mid-2000s that 3-point belts became the norm for all rear seats. The lap-only era quietly faded, but not before leaving a legacy of preventable harm. 8th place, the 1974 seatbelt starter interlock turned every ignition into a compliance checkpoint. The concept was simple. If the driver was not buckled, the car refused to start. On paper, it looked like a shortcut to safer roads. In practice, it sparked a national uproar. Drivers found themselves stranded by jammed belts or tangled buckles, a frustration that sometimes delayed emergency escapes. Emergency responder surveys from 1976 reported cases where the interlock made quick exits impossible when seconds counted. Despite all the hassle, crash data showed only a modest 4% drop in unbelted driver collisions. The backlash reached Congress, which swiftly passed a rider banning mandatory interlocks. By 1982, the requirement was repealed, replaced by gentler seatbelt reminder chimes. The starter interlock faded as a cautionary tale, proof that forcing safety can sometimes create new risks without delivering the payoff regulators hoped for. Number 7. Automatic shoulder belts promised hands-free safety, but ended up creating new dangers. Early systems like push bar and belt-and-seat designs tried to make buckling up effortless. Close the door, and the shoulder strap slid into place on its own. The trouble was, these passive belts often missed the mark, literally. Crash tests by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration from the mid-1970s found 13% higher rates of neck-over-stretch injuries compared with manual belts because straps rode too low or failed to lock in a rollover. Field reports showed about 7% of these automatic systems failed to engage properly when it mattered most. In 1977, regulators ruled these designs non-compliant, citing mispositioned restraints and inconsistent protection. When airbags became mandatory in 1998, the era of automatic shoulder belts quietly ended. It left a cautionary tale. Convenience should never come at the cost of real safety. Number 6. Side-facing jump seats turned the back of the family wagon into a danger zone. These fold-down seats looked clever. Just flip one up and squeeze in a couple more kids, all facing sideways along the rear fenders. But when a crash hit from the side, The human body wasn't lined up to take the blow. Instead, rotational forces spun riders outward, multiplying the violence. NHTSA's mid-1970s crash studies found that passengers in side-facing jump seats faced a 31% higher fatality rate in side impacts compared to those in forward-facing seats. Even more shocking, the odds of being ejected were 3 times higher, as the seat's anchor points simply couldn't hold against a lateral hit. By 1978, federal regulations banned rear seats that did not face forward in new passenger cars, closing the book on this risky shortcut to extra seating. The design that once promised flexibility delivered only heartbreak when physics took over. Number 5. Hidden rear fuel fillers turned a styling trend into a deadly hazard. In the 1970s, tucking the gas cap behind the license plate or inside the rear bumper seemed sleek, until a rear end crash occurred. When an impact crushed the recessed filler neck, gasoline could gush into the trunk or passenger area, feeding a fire before anyone realized what had happened. Crash records from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration from 1973 to 1977 counted 62 fuel leak fires linked to these hidden fillers, compared to just 24 after new rules took effect. The stakes were high. Fire-related deaths dropped from 8% of crash fatalities to 3% within 3 years of the 1978 amendment to Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standard 301, which demanded visible filler necks and stronger fuel tank mounts. Concealed caps delayed leak detection and slowed rescue, turning a minor crash into a race against flames. This was one design where style literally burned out its welcome. Number 4. Hard dashboards and rigid interior panels once made every front seat collision a gamble with serious injury. In the early 1970s, dashboards were often nothing more than steel beams or hard plastic shells, offering no give when a head or face struck them. IIHS crash test data from 1974 to 1976 found that drivers hitting these unforgiving surfaces suffered facial fractures at 2.5 times the rate of those protected by energy-absorbing dashboards. The consequences were severe. Dashboard impacts accounted for about 12% of passenger car fatalities in frontal crashes before 1976. That changed when the revised FMVSS 201 rule required dashboards to absorb impact energy, leading manufacturers to add deformable foam and softer plastics. By 2012, these improvements were credited with saving an estimated 1,350 lives each year. The move away from hard dashboards marked a turning point, transforming the car interior from a hidden hazard into a safer space for everyone inside. Coming to the top 3, non-collapsible steering columns once turned a front-end crash into a deadly spear event. In the 1970s, a rigid steering column could drive straight into the driver's chest or neck during a collision. The numbers were stark. Impalement by the steering column accounted for 6% of all driver deaths in frontal crashes. That single design flaw haunted crash investigators and trauma surgeons alike. In 1977, the NHTSA published a crash study that laid bare the risk, prompting a rule change that required telescoping, energy-absorbing columns in all new cars by September 1979. The impact was dramatic. A 70% reduction in column-related fatalities followed, and IIHS tests showed a 45% drop in neck load forces. Instead of acting like a rigid pipe, the new collapsible columns crumpled on impact, soaking up energy and sparing lives. For many survivors, the difference between a rigid column and a collapsing one was the difference between tragedy and a second chance. Number 2, weak side doors once turned a routine T-bone crash into a catastrophic event. Without reinforced beams or sturdy B-pillars, cars of the 1970s could cave in like cardboard, leaving almost nothing between the passenger and an oncoming vehicle. IHS side impact tests from the mid-1970s revealed a 42% higher rate of serious chest injuries in cars without reinforced doors. The risk didn't stop there. Side door collapse contributed to 18% of occupant ejections in side impacts. After federal rules in 1978 mandated steel door beams and stronger B-pillars, that ejection rate was cut in half by 1982. NHTSA's crash data made it clear a reinforced door acts as part of an occupant cage, absorbing and redirecting impact forces that would otherwise reach fragile bodies. The old weak doors faded fast as the industry shifted to structures designed to keep the passenger compartment intact, setting the stage for the head and neck protection that would come next. And finally, in first place, inadequate head restraints and low seatbacks stand out as the most widespread and quietly harmful old car feature of all. For decades, millions of drivers and passengers rode with little more than a padded bump behind their necks, barely rising above the seatback. In a rear-end crash, these low, fixed headrests did almost nothing to stop the head from snapping backward, setting up the classic whiplash injury. The numbers are striking. After the 1978 upgrade to FMVSS 202, which set a minimum 9-inch headrest height and pushed for adjustable designs, insurance claims for whiplash dropped by 30%. Cervical spine injuries in rear impacts fell from 4% to just 2.8% of all crash injuries. Later, when the dynamic FMVSS 202A standard took effect, vehicles with modern, well-positioned head restraints proved 10.9% more effective at preventing neck injuries than those with the old designs. The lesson was simple. A few extra inches of seatback and a properly placed headrest could halve the risk of chronic neck pain, missed work, and lifelong disability. Early NHTSA studies called out low seatbacks as the era's most common restraint failure, and IIHS crash tests confirmed the difference. For many survivors, the addition of a real adjustable headrest meant the difference between a minor ache and permanent damage. Engineers and doctors agreed what looked like a small detail turned out to be a lifesaver, making the humble headrest the unsung hero of modern crash protection. Across all 10 vanished features, one pattern stands out. Automotive progress is written in the lessons of past mistakes. Each forgotten hazard marks a hard-won advance in engineering and regulation. Safer cars are not nostalgia, they are the result of relentless adaptation. The road ahead keeps demanding it. What surprised you most?